You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. With me is women's rights activist Brinda Adige. Thank you, Brinda, for joining me. I'm going to add the pictures also on screen so that our viewers can see what are we talking about here. These are pictures of protests coming from Badlapur of Thane district in Maharashtra. What has happened again has shocked the nation. Two nursery kids abused by the cleaning staff of their school. This has happened in Maharashtra, in Thane district. This is a reputed school. From the accounts that we have heard, parents are livid, protesters are out on the streets. There is a rail roko at the moment at the Badlapur station. And of course, public anger has spilled over. Those are the pictures, Brinda. I mean, after Kolkata, now Thane, and this time it's a heart wrenching shame. Two minor girls, all of 3 to 4 years old. I mean, imagine the predators, the sexual perverts are lurking in every corner, and we do not have institutional safety. What are your thoughts when you see all this, Brinda?
We must understand, Afrida, that we are a largely patriarchal country. Almost all the time, at various levels, sanctions, social sanctions to sexual abuse, either on children or on women, is not taken seriously. And when you look at institutional security and safety, that is not given any priority. People will say we want to look at an English medium school. We are looking at a school which has a playground, probably tennis court, swimming pool, but nobody is looking at or asking what are the security measures that are already in place to keep my child safe. And even though these are protocols stipulated by the education department that these things must be there in place, they have to go to the fire department, the pollution department, but nowhere in India are schools or organizations or institutions working with children, except the civil society organizations, charged with the child protection policy. Nowhere in India has any school been pulled up for not having a child protection policy. The states make announcements, they will print it out, they will even launch it, like my state in Karnataka, but nobody has been pulled up or held accountable. Is your school, is your college child protected? Is the policy in place? Because if all of this was in place, then there is security and safety. People who are
Right.
employed, people who come into the school or that institution, mandated that they will not do these things, and they cannot go in these areas. Now we don't have that. So there is no institutional security.
Yes, which is the biggest tragedy at the moment, whether it is government hospitals where resident doctors have to work in odd hours, whether it is little children, nursery kids. I have with me also Sudas Patil, who is joining me now on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Patil. You're the corporator from Badlapur. Badlapur is up in flames. The public anger at the moment, I don't know. I think I have lost Mr. Patil. Badlapur, as we can see in these visuals, are out. The protesters are out in very large numbers, police trying to control the crowds, and this anger is totally understandable. I mean, I just can't imagine the parents of these 4-year-old kids who would have thought the school is the safest place. It's your school and it's your home. There are places where you are nurtured as a child. And if these are not safe places anymore, where do you send a child? Now, are you going to stop little girls from going to school? Will the parents shudder to think when they send their kids to school, even that space is not really a safe space anymore? That is what this kind of incidents show. And unless the authorities take responsibility, nothing will change. In this case, the principal and a few of the staff members have been suspended. Again, a lot of anomalies, Brinda, a lot of discrepancies in the handling of the case. The police has delayed filing of the FIR again. The parents made to run from pillar to post. First of all, let's make our audience understand that for a situation like this, even to come to the fore is very difficult. How many 3 to 4 year olds actually express themselves and disclose what would have happened to them? The fact that this case came to light, because a child confided with her grandfather. That just shows that many of these incidents sometimes would even go unreported, Brinda.
You're right. Many of the incidents always go unreported because here, like you
हेलो
mentioned, 3 to 4 years, they don't have
Hold
the
on one
words,
second,
they
Brinda.
don't
I'll
have the
just take
language.
opening comments
हेलो
from Surdas Patil. Sorry to interrupt you. Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Patil. I wanted your remarks on what we see happening in Badlapur. You are a public representative, a corporator. How is it that the schools do not have basic safety for children? Where are the checks and balances for those who are employed as the school staff?
आई विल टॉक टू हिंदी
जी बिल्कुल
मैम।
हिंदी में बोलिए बिल्कुल।
मैडम कैसे है ये जो घटना हुई है, ये
हम्म
घटने को अभी कम से कम एक 8 5 6 दिन हुए, लेकिन आज ये घटना होके 5 6 दिन पहले भी यहाँ के प्रशासन ने, यहाँ की पुलिस यंत्रणा ने इतना सीरियसली ये घटना को नहीं लिया है। क्योंकि आज पूरे देश में जैसे अभी कोलकाता में एक घटना हुई थी, उससे पहले महाराष्ट्र में भी 2 घटना हुई थी, लेकिन यंत्रणा जो स्पीड से काम करना चाहिए,
I think we have lost your
ये जो लोग
audio. We
रास्ता,
will have. Okay,
हाँ,
carry on. Yeah, बोलिए बोलिए हाँ।
लोग रास्ते पे उतर के ये जो निर्देशन दे रहे हैं, इसके पीछे लोगों का आक्रोश है। क्योंकि अगर आप प्रशासन अगर ये बात पे क्विक एक्शन लेती है तो लोगों को रास्ते पे उतरने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती। क्योंकि आज आप देखिए, हर एक महिला जो अपने बच्चों को लेके असुरक्षित है, जिनकी वजह से लोग रास्ते पे उतरे हैं, कि आज हर स्कूल में लोग इतनी फीस लेते हैं, इतनी स्कूल में जो हर चीज पे आप फीस ये करते हैं, तो वो चीज के लिए उनको प्रोटेक्शन उतना दे नहीं पा रहे हैं जो आज ये स्कूल में हुआ है। हर एक स्कूल
लेकिन आपकी तो
में वही
जिम्मेदारी बनते
प्रोटेक्शन
हैं
है
एज
या
ए
नहीं है,
कॉर्पोरेटर,
ये गवर्नमेंट ने
एज अ
चेक
पब्लिक
करना चाहिए।
रिप्रेजेंटेटिव। आप तो पब्लिक के नुमाइंदे हैं, तो आपका भी एक जिम्मेदारी बनता है कि जो स्कूल आपके एरिया में है उनके अंदर बेसिक
बिल्कुल
चाइल्ड सेफ्टी
बिल्कुल
है या
बिल्कुल
नहीं।
बिल्कुल मैम, बिल्कुल।
क्या आपको लगता है कि आप जैसे
नहीं नहीं,
कॉर्पोरेटर
बिल्कुल
इसकी
बिल्कुल।
जिम्मेदारी लेना चाहिए?
लेकिन ये
अथॉरिटी कौन है हमारे लिए? तो
लेकिन
अथॉरिटी आप
बराबर
ही
है।
है, आप बदलापुर के कॉर्पोरेटर है। तो
नहीं नहीं, बराबर
आप
बराबर बराबर। लेकिन
आप किसको
ये
जिम्मेदार
अथॉरिटी
ठहराते
ये
हैं?
हाँ, ये अथॉरिटी लोकल पॉलिटिशियन की भी है। जो लोकल पॉलिटिशियन से ऊपर जो गवर्नमेंट ये स्कूल को जो हर स्कूल को परमिशन देती है, वो परमिशन के ऊपर उनके क्लॉथ रहने चाहिए कि ये क्लॉथ पे जैसे आप सीसीटीवी कैमरा है या कोई भी लेडीज टॉयलेट है तो वहां पे लेडीज स्टाफ भर्ती करना, ये सब प्रशासन का काम है। ये ना कि कॉर्पोरेटर हर जगह जाके नहीं देख पाता। ये ये जो काम है ये प्रशासन का है, ये पुलिस नहीं कर पाएगी। लेकिन अगर जो चीज आज हुई है, आज जो आप देख रहे हैं पूरे बदलापुर में हलबल मची हुई है, आज लोग इतना रास्ते पे उतरे हैं, तो ये प्रशासन या पुलिस, ये यंत्रणा ने अगर ये चीज पे ध्यान देना मांगता था तो नहीं दिया, इसके वजह से ये हुआ है। इसमें लोगों
जी
की गलती नहीं। लोगों हर यहाँ पे बदलापुर में हर लोग काम धंधे जाके काम मतलब हर वर्कर है, वर्कर ज्यादा करके बॉम्बे तरफ जाने वाले वर्कर्स है, वो सुबह जाते हैं शाम को घर आते हैं, उनमें लेडीज है जेंट्स है। तो उनको उनके लिए यही है कि मेरा बच्चा स्कूल में जाता है तो उसकी प्रोटेक्शन स्कूल की जिम्मेदारी है। तो हर स्कूल ने ये हम भी इस पे इससे आगे हम भी इस पे ध्यान देंगे कि हम हर स्कूल में जाके सीसीटीवी है प्रॉपर की नहीं वो देख पाएंगे। लेकिन अभी जो हुआ
बिल्कुल
है, जो
बिल्कुल।
चीज हुई है, उसके लिए पुलिस ने पहले फ्रंट
म्यूनिसिपैलिटी
में आके
का
इस पे
ये
कार्रवाई करने
जिम्मेदारी तो
मांगते थे।
बनता ही है कि बेसिक सेफ्टी स्टैंडर्ड्स है या नहीं आपके एरिया में बच्चों के लिए, उतना ध्यान म्यूनिसिपैलिटी की तरफ से भी एक जिम्मेदारी लिया जा सकता है। आई अप्रिशिएट कि आपने कम से कम इस बात को एक्नॉलेज किया। वृंदा, द victim question was being escorted by the accused to the washroom. Now imagine here you have a situation of a male staffer in a nursery class, nursery school, accompanying a child to the washroom. That itself is potentially such a wrong policy to have. Uh, these maybe 3 or 4 year old children, but on principle, you should not have male staffers escorting young girls to the washroom. And if you now see the sequence of events, it appears that the school simply did not pay any attention to very basic standards of safety for children, Brinda.
Yes, we know that if they had adopted the child protection policy, it is very clear. You need to have only women with young children and only women where girls' school are concerned. Not that I say that women may not be abusers, but largely the trend, and it is common knowledge that a male cannot be accompanying a girl student to the toilet. Now, how did the management allow for something like that? Absolute
Exactly.
indifference. If you ask anybody in the management, will you allow your child to be taken by another male staff to the toilet? They would not allow. But it is somebody else's child. They do not have that responsibility. They don't sign any undertaking, but they will get a lot of other undertaking from the parents that the school is not responsible for this and for that. But the school is responsible for the safety. The school is responsible for due diligence of every staff they appoint at whatever level it might be. Did they do the due diligence? Have they monitored? Where are the CCTV cameras for them to monitor? Are there any kind of talks or discussions that happen with children about their feeling of safety? Because I know that in some of the government schools that we are working with, there are the SDMCs and there are teachers and there are volunteers also who come from outside asking children, do they feel safe? Now, if this one child had not spoken to the grandfather, none of this would have come out. We do not know how many more victims were there in the past. And they have not
Exactly. I
spoken
mean,
about it.
so two things, Brinda, from what you and me discussed earlier also, is that the checks and balances, the credentials of those employed in a school have to be so thoroughly checked. Who are these people who are joining as the school staff who will be directly handling the kids? There must be a thorough background check. You just cannot have just about anyone taking these positions. And it's a basic safety standard. And secondly, the school authorities, I mean, it's not just enough to have an educational qualification to be a principal. You have to be sensitized to what are the administrative responsibilities you have. Here is a case of a school authority being unaware or indifferent, like you said, to the basic, the thumb rule that you cannot have a male staffer accompany a female child to the washroom. So these things were negligence, come under negligence of the school authority. Then we come to the negligence of the police or the state government or the laws in place, and whether there needs to be a separate law now for schools, etc. But when we go into the micro picture, we see that there is a lack of sensitization of the school authorities. They seem to be indifferent to these safety protocols. सुनील जी, ये बताइए कि आपके एरिया में काफी सारे स्कूल होंगे, ये जो है इंसिडेंट हुआ, इसके बाद आप क्या बदलाव लाएंगे, कैसे इंश्योर करेंगे कि कोई और बच्ची इस तरह से मोलेस्ट ना हो? सुरदास पाटिल जी, सॉरी. आप सुन पा रहे हैं मुझे? I don't know if you can hear me. I think this frame has also frozen. Brinda, this is the important issue that I wanted to raise, that case after case, I mean, we've not even recovered from the Kolkata incident, and there's another one now. A lot of it is also to do with the fact that sexual perversion is so rampant, and no one is safe. A little baby is not safe anymore.
Yes, you're right. Sexual perversion is rampant and it is rotting into our system because there is also no speedy conclusions to any of this. None of these cases are brought to logical conclusions in a swift manner. And so it goes on and on. So there is no fear of law. And one that said, which school, which management has ever been booked in the FIR, ever been named in the FIR as accused one? Because at the end of the day, they have abetted it. If we look at how law functions, we need to understand that they were abettors. They are abettors. If they had put their things in place, then this would have not happened. And so there is no monitoring. But I would also like to place a part of that responsibility on parents. They would ask for everything under the sun in a school where they want the best for their children. Why would you not ask? What are the various other systems you have in place? What kind of toilets do you have? Are these doors that shut by themselves? Would a child feel scared inside the toilet? Is there enough light in the toilet? Who accompanies? I'm not talking of CCTV cameras there, but at any point of time when you look at the CPP, it always says that there must be two people who is accompanying that child or those children, so that one and the other keep a track of the other person, and it is not the same person. Weekly there are rotations, because we know these things happen in other schools. They are very careful about children and child safety. Some schools will not look at it because they are just indifferent. They just assume they will not get caught. Nothing like this will happen. So part of them seems to be professionally or academically qualified, but the other part of people whom they employ in the school, to a large extent, what we have noticed in the schools is also paying a pittance. So anybody who comes can be employed over there. People with a certain qualification must also be brought there. People with some training must be brought there. Now, largely when you get these kind of people, they may not even be trainable.
Yes, absolutely. These are important points you are making, Brinda, because I think case after case, these things are pointed out. But now I have to say this is deliberate negligence. It is not possible that a school principal would not be aware that you can't have a male staffer accompany a little child. It's deliberate negligence, either because you simply don't care, or you assume nothing will happen. You have thrown caution to the winds. That's what this is. सुदास पाटिल जी, आपसे मैं ये जानना चाहती हूँ कि कैसे आप इंश्योर करेंगे कि दूसरा इस तरह का केस कभी ना हो? क्या करने की जरूरत है?
सॉरी मैम, मैं थोड़ा रेंज में ही था, लेकिन आपका जो क्वेश्चन है मुझे समझ में आ रहा है। मैडम, कैसे यहाँ पे जो बदलापुर में, अभी बदलापुर जस्ट अभी शुरुआत है बदलापुर बढ़ने की। बदलापुर में क्राउड जो है, मतलब स्कूल्स है, वो अभी अभी ज्यादा स्कूल्स बढ़ने लगे हैं। तो पहले जो स्कूल्स थे, तो कोई प्राइवेट स्कूल थे, उसमें आधे स्कूल है जो गवर्नमेंट ग्रांटेबल है। तो इसके बाद या इसके बाद कभी भी ऐसी कुछ चीज ना होवे जिससे ये देश, अपने देश को या अपने राज्य को, महाराष्ट्र को ये कंडीशन में आने की जरूरत पड़े, लोगों को रास्ते पे आने की जरूरत पड़े। हम खुद
आपके ऑडियो में काफी डिस्टरबेंस है। मैं चाहूंगी आपके ऑडियो में काफी, जी बोलिए, कंटिन्यू करिए।
हेलो
जी, कंटिन्यू करिए, अभी आ रही आवाज।
इसके बाद ऐसी कोई भी घटना ना हो, हाँ, इसके बाद में कोई भी ऐसी घटना ना हो, इसके लिए हम खुद इसके ऊपर, अभी मैं म्युनिसिपैलिटी में भी और पुलिस प्रशासन से भी, हमारे यहाँ के एमएलए है, उन्होंने भी गवर्नमेंट से बात चालू है उनकी, कि हर स्कूल पे कंपलसरी ये रिस्ट्रिक्शन आना चाहिए कि हर स्कूल में जहाँ लेडीज है वहाँ लेडीज टॉयलेट में लेडीज स्टाफ हो। लेकिन अभी क्या हुआ था, जो लेडीज स्टाफ तो रहते हैं, लेकिन जो वहां पे जो साफ सफाई कर्मचारी रहते हैं, मतलब जो अंदर जो ड्रेनेज काम करने वाले रहते हैं, वो भी लेडीज ही होनी चाहिए। क्योंकि वो मूवमेंट में आज ये बच्ची छोटी थी, उससे बड़ी बच्ची रहेगी, उनको भी कुछ तकलीफ ना हो, या इससे भी जो भी आज हुआ है ये कभी दोबारा ना हो, इसके लिए हम खुद अपनी म्युनिसिपैलिटी से या हमारे प्रशासन से बात करेंगे, हमारे एमएलए से बात करेंगे। और ये जो हुआ है ये बहुत ही निंदनीय है, हम इसकी निंदा करते हैं। और जो पीड़ित है उनको उनके लिए हमारी सिंपैथी है, और जो 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 जिसने ये किया है वो आदमी को कड़ी सजा हो, इसके लिए हम हमारे पूरी पक्ष के तरफ से हम कोशिश करेंगे।
जी,
और
क्या
आज
ऐसा कोई नियम
मैं तो
बन सकता
ये
है
प्रशासन से भी
साकेत
विनती
जी?
करता हूँ
ऐसा
कि
कुछ
जो
नियम बन सकता है कि जो स्कूल में जो नियुक्ति होगी, जैसे स्कूल में क्लीनिंग स्टाफ या बाकी एंसिलरी स्टाफ जो होते हैं, उनकी नियुक्ति में म्युनिसिपैलिटी एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ले, क्योंकि हर चीज जो है हम राज्य सरकार पे नहीं छोड़ सकते। आपको आपके एरिया के बारे में
मैम,
ज्यादा नॉलेज है, ज्यादा आपके जान पहचान है, तो क्या म्यूनिसिपैलिटी ऐसा कोई नियम बना सकते हैं कि हर स्कूल में जो एंसिलरी स्टाफ का नियुक्ति होगा, उसके लिए म्यूनिसिपैलिटी से परमिशन ले? तो कोई एक
जरूर
अथॉरिटी
जरूर
ऐसा होगा कि
जरूर
उनका
जरूर
बैकग्राउंड
जरूर
चेक हुए,
जरूर जरूर
कि कोई भी
मैं खुद
क्रिमिनल
हमारे
रिकॉर्ड
चीफ
वाले लोग हैं या जिनका क्लीन रिकॉर्ड नहीं है, वैसे लोग कम से कम एम्प्लॉय ना हो ऐसे स्कूलों में।
जरूर जरूर जो भी म्यूनिसिपालिटी से हम अभी चीफ ऑफिसर से हम बाद में अभी ये जो सॉल्व होने के बाद हम खुद बात करेंगे कि हर जो चीज जो हर स्कूल का स्टाफ रहेगा, जो क्लीनिंग स्टाफ है या कोई अलग स्टाफ है, उनकी एक आइडेंटिटी रहनी मांगती है। वो पुलिस स्टेशन और म्यूनिसिपालिटी दोनों के तरफ जैसे स्कूल में है वो उनकी एक आइडेंटिटी स्कूल के जैसे ही म्यूनिसिपालिटी में भी और पुलिस स्टेशन में भी हो, और उनके बाद उनको वहां पे काम पे रखना चाहिए। इसके बारे में हम हमारे चीफ ऑफिसर से बात करके इसका सॉल्यूशन निकालने की जरूर कोशिश करेंगे।
Brinda, would that, I mean, I do understand that even that may not be enough, right? Because when you have a sort of a criminal mindset, a perverse mindset, or for sexual perverts for that matter, any opportunity is good enough. And sometimes they may have the best of records also. And it may be a first time offender also. It is not necessary that only second or third time offenders are getting caught. So, but at least you have some systems in place to eliminate some of it. What according to you would be a solution for schools to ensure that safety is upheld to the highest standards?
See, for that, every teaching staff and non-teaching staff must be held responsible. Right now, that is not the case. Even in this particular case, does the FIR name the principal and the management and the HOD and all of the others? Why is it not naming them? Why does the police think that they are not directly involved in this crime? So on what grounds do the police do something like that? So until and unless I am held, there must be something at stake for me. If I'm the class teacher, it becomes my responsibility to be so sensitive that I look for signs, at least non-verbal signs, as soon as the child is back from the toilet. So this is not the first time it has happened. It has happened earlier. So what has this teacher done? Why is it that this teacher has never been able to identify or recognize the signs? Today, we know that all the schools, we keep continuously saying that non-verbal language is much, much more important. So we cannot absolve the teachers. Yes, due diligence is required, and the municipality can give a letter. The police could also give you a letter. But at the end of the day, those are not character certificates.
True.
We need to have systems where something is at stake for me. If I am the teacher of that class and I have allowed something like this to happen, and I did not check and say, why did you come? You're a male worker. Why are you taking her and going? Will I send my child? I would not. How did you send that child who's in your care and charge? So I think we need to place the blame where it should be and the responsibility that it must be. So we must hold school, teaching, non-teaching, and the management responsible for these lapses and the negligence.
Also, Brinda, post crime reporting, post crime action, again the same thing. We're not even done reporting about the Kolkata case, and again the same thing. There is no way that a parent can get an FIR registered immediately and the police will cooperate fully. There is always a delay, and that itself shows that the system is not functioning in favor of whoever is the victim in a scenario like this. The parents are made to run from pillar to post. It's never an easy process.
Yes, that is one of the biggest hurdles. Like I mentioned in the beginning, we are a largely patriarchal system. People functioning also are very patriarchal. The cases that we take to the police station, especially POCSO cases, and we've heard earlier some of the judges also saying that if skin has not touched the skin, then you cannot be calling it POCSO. It should come under some other kind of a harassment. The law is clear. If a child has been sexually abused, what are the various definitions? There is aggravated and non-aggravated. All of this must be taken into consideration by the police. You are enforcer of the law. You don't decide what cases you want to register and what you want to let go. Your job is, when the complainant comes there, is to register the case and do the needful as per procedure. Now, after that, let's see what happens in the court. Now, supposedly, all POCSO cases and sexual assault and rape cases must be tried under the fast track courts. How many judges are there? How many POCSO courts are there? Probably a district has one magistrate who doubles and triples up as a POCSO magistrate. For some time, morning to afternoon, that person, he or she, is a POCSO judge. And after that, goes back to some other work. You need a professionally trained person to handle these cases, because they are not like the other victims who can speak to all questions that is asked. You're trying to trick the child. We are trying to help the child to be able to speak what has happened, or the woman to speak up. Now, these courts don't function like that. The way the courts are built, we have a law 2013. From 2013, some of the court complexes that have been built have one door, exit and entry. When the court law is so clear that the victim need not see the perpetrator, need not see that accused. Now, both will come in and go out through the same door. So the judge and the magistrate have another door, but the victim is not allowed to use that door. Why is it not possible for us who've reached the other side and the dark side of the moon to think of all these things, to put these compliances in place? That is also the state institutional responsibility, machinery's responsibility, to ensure that all this is made available to the children. Now, it is not made available like that. 1. 2, years together. POCSO case 9 to 11 months, maximum 15 months. Years together. Should this child move on or not? Should this woman who has been raped, abused, assaulted, ripped of her dignity and self-respect move on in life or not? Continue with the rest of her life or not? How can the courts make excuses? We have vacancies, we don't have lawyers, we don't have magistrates. A country that's talking about 7 trillion GDP, we are not able to get these things into place. By then, victims turn hostile. So if you look at the statistics, Afrida, nearly 58 to 69% of the accused are acquitted. Lack of evidence, victims turning hostile, or victims not reachable, they are not coming forward. So we have to address these systemic state machineries whose lacunae is not getting filled up.
There's lacunae at every level, and Brinda, you have explained it very well to us, the way the system works, the loopholes that exist, and case after case, but these loopholes are not being addressed, or they are being plugged for that matter. Let me tell you here that the FIR was registered more than 12 hours after the complaint was lodged, and that too after the intervention of the district women and child welfare department. Now the school administration has suspended the principal, the class teacher, and the female attendant, holding them responsible for the incident. The sweeper, the cleaning staff who's the accused, was hired on the 1st of August, and this happens 3-4 days back. Now he's a new hire, he's a new recruit. So clearly, when you have a person like that, there should be ideally probably a period of sensitization, a period of like how we have our
Probation,
a period
yes.
where you have those period where a person is observed, given. None of that, I am sure, takes place. But I want to zoom out to a larger point, and you also sort of hinted at that. The way the criminal mindsets are allowed to thrive, the way they have no fear of the law. And probably because of the reasons that you just cited, that they simply think they can get away with this. Why is there no fear of the law? Why is it that they dare to, the audacity of it? What, according to you, is the reason?
First and foremost, this male entitlement, this toxic masculinity. And then the other part of it being the onus is not on the perpetrator to prove himself or herself innocent. It is the victim, it is the police who are going round and round trying to convince the court that this has happened. Now, why is it not possible for the court and the prosecutor to work in convergence with the police? After all, the police can also handle and do only that much. Why isn't the court pulling up and asking the management, give me information, give me all the protocols and compliances that you have not been in compliance with? So a lot of burden is put on the police. Two, the police political nexus still continues. We know that most schools have some kind of a politician backing. So when cases of this nature happen, the police do not take the case immediately because somebody else has called and said, okay, don't take the case, otherwise you will be sent on your transfer to a place where you may not have water or road. So the police's hand are tied. Now, until we have police reforms and break and shatter these kind of nexus, we will not have a free and fair investigation. And if that free and fair investigation is not there, then we know that this case doesn't hold water in court, and the perpetrator also knows it. Where have we named and shamed the perpetrator? Never. He's out on bail till he's proven guilty. When he is on bail, is he under observation? Does he have to come to the police station to report? 50% of them go absconding. So the police now have to deploy their already limited resources looking for this fellow. How is that possible? The under trials that are there inside. What is wrong with our justice system to speed up a case? Why would date after date be given? I can understand the limitations or the challenges that might be presenting forensic evidence. But in many cases, all of this evidence is gathered in the first round itself. It is how they try to evade or wipe away the evidence that takes time. And that is why we need the courts to step in heavily. We need judicial reforms. And we need the perpetrator to have fear of law. No call from anybody, no matter who the highest and the biggest politician or the businessman or woman is. You will have to serve that punishment. If that message can go out strongly, nobody can buy a police person, nobody can buy a prosecutor, nobody can buy a judge. And this is a punishment that will be meted out to you. Until and unless that message goes, we'll be grappling with these kind of questions time and again.
Time and again, because what you're saying essentially is that we have failed to create deterrence. So we have failed in enforcement, we have failed to create deterrence, we have failed to ensure that there is screening of staff that enters a school who will be directly handling children. And if schools have failed, the municipalities should take responsibility, the state government should take responsibility, because how many incidents, Brinda? I'm just looking at the past cases. This has happened recently in February 2024. Kapurabadi police arrest a 27-year-old bus attendant of a third-party tour company for allegedly molesting 6 girls and 2 boys during a school picnic. That was February this year. December 2022, police arrest a 35-year-old teacher for allegedly molesting a 16-year-old of class 10 student in school. January 2015, superintendent of a state-run boarding school, again in Thane district, this had happened, for allegedly molesting 10 girls aged between 12 and 15 for over a month. February 2011, a primary school principal from Thane district is arrested for allegedly molesting a 9-year-old female student. It happens over and over again. And I want to also underline a very important point you made, that sexual abuse is the extreme. Much less than that, you have to have a monitoring system to grab the culprits. And here you had these little 4-year-old girls. My heart breaks to even think of it, being taken for an examination of their private parts. And that is when it was revealed that a sexual abuse has happened. I mean, the trauma of it all, It is just unthinkable that, in today's times, this is what we are dealing in. These are avoidable crimes. These are crimes that can be prevented. A quick last word, Brinda, on the prevention part of it. What are your top three things that you will say, and who would you address them to?
I would first want to address this to parents and caregivers inside the homes. Talk to your children, listen to them. Let us not brush off anything that they say. Sometimes they might fantasize, it doesn't matter. Listen to them and tell them that it is okay for them to talk about anything that happens. If a stranger is doing these things, there is good touch and bad touch, but we still wait for them to become 6, 7 years old. No, talk to them at 2.5. Today, children are intelligent, biologically and otherwise also. They have evolved. As a human race, we have evolved. So children can understand at 2, 2.5 what is a good touch and bad touch. And tell the child that if the child is feeling uncomfortable, shout loudly. It doesn't matter what other people think. It doesn't matter what other people will say. It doesn't matter if their friends ask them to shush. Just shout loudly and point out what has happened to them. That is important. Two, as parents, the minute you get to know that this has happened to your child, or maybe your child was at risk of something like this happening, raise the issue with your authorities, whoever it might be. School principal, your apartment watchman, your local Gurkha, I don't know. Raise the issue. Don't say, oh, this has happened and what will people think about me? Please think that abuses like this on children sears their very soul. They live with it for the rest of their life. And that is not something that you want on your heart, that you did not talk because you were worried what somebody else will think. Somebody else must think, how dare the perpetrator thought that he or she could touch and get away. Thirdly, I think it is time for schools, teachers, non-teaching staff to become sensitive to everything that the child does and does not. Today, most families have single children. And single children, it is even more difficult because they have nobody else of their own age groups to speak to when they go back home. And not many adults are open like this particular grandfather. So it is important for the teachers and the non-teaching staff to be sensitized and held responsible and accountable. Because until and unless something is at stake for them, they are not going to do that duty. Nobody must think that it is an obligation. Sorry, no, it is a duty. Charged with the responsibility of keeping the child safe inside the school. Complete trust and confidence from the parents is on the school and the teaching staff and the non-teaching staff. You cannot wash off and absolve yourself of this responsibility. Fourthly, I think it is time for the police to have a separate, sensitive, trained professional department only to take cases related to children and women. Enough of all of this law and order and crime and them doing everything from political bandobast duty to mob bandobast. No, we need to have a separate unit, and we need to have same separate trained prosecutors and trained judges, and in courts that are child friendly.
We've been crying about this, Brinda. I remember, yes, having you on my shows earlier as well, and we have been trying to hammer down these points, but why is it that things have not changed on the ground? Thank you so much, Brinda, for joining us today on Viewpoint. I'm going to now, in fact, introduce the next panelist. Brinda, I really appreciate your giving us time today on my program. Let me now introduce Abha Singh, senior lawyer, joining me on the program. Very good afternoon to you, ma'am. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So it is heart-wrenching indeed, isn't it, to see this case of two 4-year-olds being molested in their school premises. Of course, not the first case. We've seen so many of those instances. But like I was just discussing with Brinda, nothing seems to change on ground. Why are we so lax in putting these institutional safety standards in place?
No, you're very right. We keep reading about it every day, every moment. I think it happens, and very few are reported. And why, in spite of that, after Nirbhaya, when the laws came, we had death penalty for rape. In fact, states like Madhya Pradesh, if a child below 6 years is sexually assaulted, it is a death penalty, and within a span of 1 month, fast track courts have been put up. And yet, Mumbai puts us to shame. Two 4-year-olds have been sexually assaulted by, I would say, a school staff. He may be a sweeper, but he was employed by the school. So, school staff should be more accountable, more responsible. But I personally feel, number one, the law is there, but execution is not there. It goes on for years and years, so there is no exemplary punishment which percolates down to the lower strata where they get to know that, look, this is not allowed, this is an offense, you can be punished. Because the marginalized communities, I mean, if you see the harrowing conditions in which they live, for them, I think this sexual assault is something part of their lives, and that is why maybe they don't know and they commit like that. That is one line of thought I feel, because he's a sweeper, whether he knows the law, whether he knows there is death penalty or not, or he knows he can get away with it because he must be doing it earlier, and the children are scared to complain or tell their parents. So these things in totality, and also, the in this case especially, the inspector, the lady inspector, has been suspended. She was delaying writing the FIR. So the police does not cooperate when people go with these type of offenses. The police are worried about their track record. They don't want to show that more cases have happened in their area. So they don't want to write an FIR. They usually write an NC, or they will say, "Ha, tumhara complaint le liya, you go back." So that is onus is on the police also. They don't show the sincerity and the seriousness to such crimes. So these all in totality are responsible for such type of rapes happening. I mean, what 4-year-olds at any age rapes happening?
Right. So, what you are saying again, I would like to understand from you the fact that when you have a non-teaching staff in the school, in this case, it has happened, they are attending to little girls. So if there was a system in place or a rule in place that only women staffers are allowed to accompany young girls, again, this would have not happened. I'm just giving you a small example of how the school authorities have completely failed. I mean, think about it. These girls were refusing to return to school. That is when the parents got suspicious. That is when the elders in the family started probing, asking questions, and it seems one of the children, one of the two, complained, or rather confided to their grandfather. Sometimes, children have a closer bond with their grandparents, and that is when they were taken for a medical examination and the case was revealed. Now, and you said it as well, that there could have been many instances where this person has committed such transgressions, hoping never to be found out, because after all, what will a 3 or 4-year-old complain about, or what will they even say? How will they even process it? So they take advantage of that situation. So under
Absolutely.
these circumstances, don't you think the school authorities, people who directly handle children, have to be sensitized? It's not enough, like I said, to have a certain educational qualification to be a teacher or a principal. You're required to have certain other parameters also, to ensure that safety standards are given the utmost priority in any school.
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of times when these cases have happened, they have been told specifically that even if the bus driver is a male, then the conductor should be a lady. There should be ayahs in the bus with these girl child. And yes, you should have female guards, you should have female security when there are girls around. That should be followed stringently. But I think because they must be getting these male sweepers cheaper or whatever, more in supply, they have not walked the extra paths to get women to safeguard these children. So I hold the school absolutely responsible. Also, the POSCO Act, the Section 21 very clearly says that there is a punishment for failure to report a case or record. So, when such incidents happen, and if in this investigation it is found that they had an inkling or something like this, they did not show their quickness to get the case registered, then action should be taken against the principal. Like in this case, if the lady inspector was not registering, so just transferring her is not the solution. I was reading the paper today; they have just transferred her. Whereas Section 21 of the POSCO Act says that they can be punished, means 6 months imprisonment. So let us punish these people. If it is found that school also, some teachers had an inkling about this sweepers record, take action against them. If you let it go leniently, nothing will change. We will have cases like this, and knee-jerk reactions and protests and dharnas will not solve the actual problem. So I think the education department has to make it very clear that if there are girl child, then you must have female staff. Secondly, these deserted areas in schools like washrooms and other places, there also the CCTV cameras have to be there, which should be monitored. Half the places CCTV cameras are not working, or the recordings are not kept. There is no backup. So all these things, these perverts take advantage of, and they know because they are working and they are familiar with the school premises. So these things are required, and of course, as you said, sensitivity, because a 4-year-old can at least be told, does anybody touch you inappropriately, or in a nice way. I think it's the all parents are working, so they don't even are there to ask them when the children come home. But I think now it is necessity that parents or elders in the house every day when they go to pick up the child or drop the child, ask the child, does someone trouble you, does someone scare you. I think these things we will have to start being serious about if we really want to protect our children.
Because, as a mother of 2 kids, I must say that, it doesn't even occur to you that something
No,
of
it
this
doesn't.
nature can happen in a
Yes,
school. You
yes.
consider it like a second home. You are totally, safe, thinking that the teachers, there are so many, people around in the school, and your child is well taken care of. You never suspect that one of them can be a perpetrator. And this is one such case, isn't it?
Exactly. And what I feel is that generally these schools try to cut down on salaries, so they don't do verifications. They take these people through some agencies, like take them through agencies, their verifications are done. So for less salary, they just try to get someone without, like in Kolkata rape case, if you see, that civic police volunteer was just kept by the police without verifying his credentials. So I think they
Yes.
should be through an agency. Proper track record should be seen, without verification and certificates. One should not be given employed in a school. So I'm sure
Hmm.
this sweeper must have had a bad track record. And in fact, there are people with such track records are employed again and again. I got to know of a watchman who was an alcoholic and sexual abuser, but societies keep them. So it is necessary that we have do's and don'ts for schools put out on their notice boards. We have do's and don'ts for the societies, because this thing happens when little children go down to play in the gardens and all. So I think till now we have kept it quiet because somehow it was stigmatized. People didn't want to talk about it. If it happened, people hushed it up. So now we have to show very clearly that any sexual offense is a crime, and it should be taken to the logical end. And this school's license should be cancelled, because you are taking such high fees. You are why you've not protected children. So head should roll in the sense license should be cancelled. And the moment a school's license is cancelled, the message will go to all schools that look, the administration, the government is going to be serious about it.
Right. This is something I'm going to highlight, and I'm glad you said it in as many words, that we have to cancel the licenses of such schools. We have to create deterrence. On the point of deterrence, as an advocate, I want you to tell us that why is the existing deterrence not working? We do have laws, and look at the number of bodies we have created. There is also POSH now. We have a POCSO Act. Nothing is working as a deterrent.
Yeah, in fact, if you see Section 6 of the POCSO Act, there's punishment up to 10 years, life imprisonment. Now there are things like death penalty coming. And
Yes.
after that, in fact, I also wonder that is there no fear of the law? But then again, the problem is conviction is very poor. Rape
Very
cases,
poor.
conviction is barely 28% among adults. For the children, I would say there would be hardly any conviction, because the way the system goes, our forensics is bad. We don't collect evidences. Our witnesses turn hostile. We don't have witness protection. Then cases are long drawn up. We talk of fast track courts, but the reality is that there is a shortage of fast track courts. The judges are few. There are dates and dates. Otherwise, it very clearly says that every district there'll be a sessions court which will be designated as a children's court, and they would be looking into it. In fact, the law also says that if a child's statement has to be recorded, the police will have to go to his house. The children's parents or someone from the NGO should be present. The child should not come in. Meet the accused in any case. So, we have things are in place, but the execution fails us. Conviction fails us. delay in justice fails us, and the police also fails us, because police is overburdened with, I would say, they are doing VIP bandobast, or they are more politically, into events which are more political. They are doing all that. So women's safety, child safety becomes a very low priority for them, and these are not vote banks which the politicians are bothered about. So I think the system needs to be strengthened. Anybody who messes up with these crimes, they should be dismissed. At least in the police, I feel this inspector who was not writing the FIR, she should be dismissed from service. One
And that
dismissal.
will also
And
act as a deterrence. If we cannot
yes,
create
yeah,
deterrence with law, at least
yeah,
if we punish those schools who have failed,
yes,
who were lax, that
yes,
will also create some sort
yes,
of deterrence, at least,
yeah,
eliminating
yeah,
possibilities of these sort of crimes. I want to ask you, in the Kolkata case as well, this has happened, that the immediate thing is to hush up. Everybody wants to guard their
yes,
turf. The school wants to guard its reputation. The police wants to guard its own, record or whatever. Everyone is busy, and sometimes even family, is fearful of the stigma. So under the circumstances, it is such an uphill task. The fact that in the Kolkata case, at least, there are clear signals that people in the hospital tried to hush up the matter. They tried to cover up. That's why it was first reported as a suicide. So my point is that probably a very small percentage of these cases actually come to light. Many
yes.
of it, you never know, may get covered up, may get hushed up for any of the reasons that I mentioned.
True, true. Very few cases are reported. I would say out of 100 sexual offenses, barely 20 to 25 would be reported. And that too, when they are reported, when the victims or their families have the courage to report, the administration immediately tries to bury them. Like in this case, they try to say it is suicide, or they will do character assassination if the girls are, of a tender age and things like that. But in Kolkata, I am appalled that in spite of the POSH Act, even Supreme Court said today, because the
Yes.
POSH Act says that safety at workplace is your fundamental right. It is right to life. But how come they didn't have restrooms, that this young trainee doctor had to go on the second floor deserted seminar room? I mean, the very thought of it brings shivers down my spine. That middle of
Absolutely.
the night, you are sleeping in a seminar room which the doors are open, cannot be locked, and after 32 hours, you are tired, you are bound to go, you're sleeping like a log. And that is where these perverts, antisocial elements, they are lurking around, looking that one mistake happens, and they will pounce on you. So hospitals, by not providing restrooms, by not providing safe places, even the principal there, if you see, he stepped down because of media outrage, and immediately the administration. And administration means the IS officer who's the medical secretary, or the health minister who's a politician. So between the IS officer and the politician, he was immediately made principal of another reputed
Yes.
medical college.
Actually, he
So
was
that is, you are
rewarded
trivializing.
with another
You are
posting.
trivializing such a heinous offense.
No, that is again very, very serious. And when I was actually hearing the Chief Justice speaking today, talking about the facilities that should be there, everything sounded so basic that you're wondering, are we saying that these facilities were not available? Are we saying
Exactly.
restrooms were not there? The Supreme Court says all resting rooms should be well lit and well ventilated. So I'm thinking of these dark, dingy rooms that are
Yes.
there in these government hospitals, which passes off as a resting space probably. And all of these things, even CCTV and the monitoring that you spoke about, all of that not happening. Basically, not a single safety protocol was in place in that hospital, at least. And now, as it turns out, even in schools, these safety protocols are not in place. As a closing remark, Abha Singh, what are the top 3, 4 protocols you think should be immediately implemented by all schools, so that no other case of a minor abuse of this nature happens, at least in school premises?
See, I think the male staff need to be removed immediately from the schools where there are tiny tots, because we know these children cannot speak, and to avoid it, it is better not to have any male staff, number one. Secondly, there has to be proactivity of the school. You have women guards, plus immediately anything you sense, immediately file a complaint, and the police has to be proactive, and licenses should be cancelled in any of these schools if such things happen, because deterrence is the biggest thing. Fear of law has to be there. deterrence has to be there. Only then we will be able to protect our children. And above all, there should be interaction between the elders and the children in their homes, who need to ask their children every day, I hope you are safe. I hope there is nobody troubling you.
These are important points you're making, and I will take the last point very seriously as a parent myself, and also to all those who are listening to this program. We are live now on Twitter and on YouTube as well. That talk to your children, at least from your end, whatever you can, to ensure that the channels of communication are open. As we now see, unfortunately, even minors in school are not safe. Till we have all these institutional safety protocols in place, which we are going to, of course, continue to talk about, let's at least from our end do everything, do all that is needful. Abha Singh, thank you so much for joining me on Viewpoint. Pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.